Om Shanti, everyone. And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, maybe in some places. So, welcome to Margaret as well. And I want to say that Margaret happened to be.
I can't hear. Oh, hang on one sec. That's better.
So, Margaret happened to be at the Global Retreat Center last weekend, and we just happened to be sitting on the same table, and we just happened to be talking about the same topic. And the topic was sleep. And so we felt it's good to talk about this topic. Margaret has done a lot of study on it. I'll give her introduction in a minute. But sleep is something that we do 365 days a year. So sleep is something we should be professional at, but we're not. And we end up sleeping in the wrong place at the wrong time. So this seminar is really about Brahmins sleeping in the right place at the right time in the right way. And it's about, we all know the sleep rejuvenates us and everything, but there'll also be a spiritual component to our discussion. But I think also more important than that, I think when we sleep properly, then we're really in a state to create fortune for ourselves. Because sometimes if we're fast asleep, whether in yoga or murli, then we're actually missing out. And so we're actually deprived of creating more fortune. So maybe, Margaret, I'll just share that Baba's quote that you found in the murli. So this is something Margaret had pulled out. And that is Baba saying on the, well, it was revised, but 1st of May 2023. And yeah, so Baba's saying, children, if you want to make progress, the Father advises you, become conquerors of sleep. I also told you this 5,000 years ago. By all means, go to bed early. There is a saying, early to bed, early to rise. This quality makes human beings great. So sleep should really support our spiritual aim and not weaken it, right? So this is kind of an introduction to the topic. So Margaret is talking about this because, well, Margaret is a BK, for those of you who don't know her, and she has a long time interest in this work. And Margaret has a BA degree in adult education and training, and as part of her professional work, her Lokik work, Margaret created this course, Make the Most of Your Sleep, which has been a popular course delivered many times over the years. And she personally has a particular interest in awake sleep cycle and how this has a huge impact on how we experience life. So Margaret is based at Global Corporation House. She actually lives at Tennyson Road, and she helps support the education department with Raj Yoga courses and trainings locally, nationally, and internationally. Yes, Margaret.
Thank you. Yes, so basically, just like all of the natural world, and also the world in here, it's cyclic. So your sleep affects your day, and all your day affects your sleep. So when I realized that, I suddenly thought, oh, this is a really spiritual topic, because all my life and what goes on in here on a conscious, subconscious, unconscious level is having an effect. And then how I sleep has an effect on my day. So it's worth discovering what works best for you, because it will have an impact. So I just thought to look at a little bit of just the mechanics of it. What is sleep? What happens? And then we can have a bit more discussion, if that's all right, Sister Aruna. So I think
Yeah.
so within the sleep, there's a sleep cycle, and within the sleep cycle, there's cycles. And then you have the day-night cycle. So it's all cyclic, and that's why you can't escape it, you know? I remember once they had this program at Global House, and it was for people first line, you know, people. And I was talking to someone who was like a policeman or like a special security, you know, special service. And he said that in their training, they had to do all sorts of things. Like they might be dropped in the middle of the country, no money, no map, and they had to get back to base. And he said there were so many different things, but he said the hardest test was when they went to sleep, they were all sleep deprived, and then they were woken up to do the next thing. And he said there's a point where you don't know who you are anymore. You don't even know if you want to live or die. And so he said to be sleep deprived is, you know, it's a really difficult thing to manage. And so, and I think we can slip into being sleep deprived without really realize it can creep up on us. So we have to pay quite a lot of attention. But this cycle, this is one cycle, and in a night you might have 3 or 4 cycles of this. So let's just start at the top because there's 2 types of sleep, and one is called non-REM. And REM, just as it says, means rapid eye movement. There's non-REM sleep, and then there's REM sleep. And in a night, you will go through a cycle, several cycles of this. So the non-REM has different stages, and the non-REM is really about the rejuvenation of the body. So your muscles, your bones, everything, your organs, um, it's all happens in the non-REM sleep. And then in the REM sleep, it's more about the storage of memories. It's about your mind getting sorted out. It's also the dream state. And so, you know, both things are happening. The sorting out of in a way, your consciousness as well, I would say, but also the body. And when we don't get enough sleep, that could be affect our moods, but it also can affect our body. We don't feel as kind of alert and you know, sleep deprivation can lead to many things. It might be just you feel more lethargic, you've lost your zeal and enthusiasm, you start to make excuses, you don't want to do things, you know, but on another level, it can be the cause of heart problems, diabetes, you know, it gets more and more serious. So, or you know, more likely to have accidents, these kind of things. And so it's worth understanding, but we're all unique and we're all different. And so they say the average one cycle is approximately 90 minutes, but you might be 80 minutes or you might be 110 minutes. You know, we're all unique. And so in a way, it's good to sort of find out, if you like, do your own research on what kind of level do you sleep? Do you need, you know, 3 cycles, 4 cycles? And to do that, maybe you need to go to bed early and see when you wake up, or one time when there's not pressure of anything, just to see what becomes natural for you. Because the ultimate would be to wake up before your alarm, to wake up naturally. That's the ultimate thing. Um, and certainly in the golden age, we'll wake up naturally. Won't be any alarm clocks or anything. But the thing that we want to avoid is waking up when we're at the deep sleep bit. So here's the cycle. You go the non-REM, it talks about 3 stages. Sometimes they talk about 4 stages. The first stage is just kind of getting relaxed. But basically there's 3 stages, and then you move on to the REM sleep, and then the cycle repeats. So probably for us BKs, we're probably getting something like 3 cycles, maybe 4. We're lucky. But, going back to the quote, we can't get up later. Like for people who are worldly people, they might think, oh, I'll just sleep in. But Baba's sort of given us a marker of the morning time of what we need to be doing in the morning. So Baba doesn't really want us to jeopardize that. So the only thing we've got is to work out how we can sleep better and maybe go to bed a bit earlier. But it's so challenging because so many things happen that can get in the way. And that's what I think worth talking about.
And we might need to say no to some things.
Certainly, for me, that and also there's a difference, when you're in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s, in your 60s, it's different. And sometimes I think we still try when we're in our, 50s and 60s to still try and live like we did when we were in our 30s, which is when we started our Brahmin life, whatever. So, it takes a little bit of working out, I would say. And I think the amazing thing, or what I'm quite passionate about, is that every night you get a chance to try again. And every day you get a chance to try something else. So it's not like I didn't get it right, that's over. No, you can think, okay, I wake up, I didn't feel so good. What could I do different today? And I think that'd be worth us discussing, some maybe tips and tools of what we could do to help ourselves. And I think Baba has shared many things that are important and will affect.
Yeah.
So should I just go on to the next slide and then we can,
Why don't you do the slides and then
yeah, and then we're done, aren't we?
have a chat?
So yeah, so this kind of is a very interesting slide because in the daytime, cortisol is very active. And we need cortisol because it regulates, it's like the adrenal glands, it is from the adrenal glands, and it kind of helps us in life. It affects most of the glands in the body, and it gives us energy, it keeps our blood sugar balanced, our blood pressure balanced, and all these things. So we need cortisol. It's also called the stress hormone, so what happens is we get stressed and it has a big effect on the cortisol. But the thing that's very interesting is what happens is the melatonin, which we need to sleep, it's a hormone. When it starts to get dark, the melatonin starts to be produced. So in the world that we're living today, when we have artificial lights, you see if you think about a couple of 100 years ago, they live much more by the day and night. And so, when it was nighttime, automatically, maybe they lit a candle or a lamp or something, but it wasn't for long. So they were much more in balance with the kind of natural world and also how the body works. But nowadays, because we've got artificial lights, we can stay up as long as we like. It's not really helping us. And if we don't go outside and get daylight, and then it can all be affected, this melatonin. But the bit that's really interesting is that, the part of the brain that regulates the circadian rhythm, which is the sleep-wake cycle, is predominantly the pineal gland, which is again what they can call that the third eye, but we know the soul sits in this area, the pineal gland, hypothalamus, pituitary. That's where the soul sits. But what is interesting is that melatonin, the precursor for melatonin, is serotonin. And we know that the serotonin is the happy hormone. So when our serotonin goes out of balance, then it affects the production of the melatonin. And so, how do you keep your production of serotonin? Well, again, it's happiness, your happiness, your positive mood, meditation. I mean, the ones who are having really good yoga must be producing a lot of serotonin. So this is why it really is a very spiritual topic. And of course, if I'm stressed, depressed, having negative thoughts, wasteful thinking, it's all getting disturbed inside. And if I don't sort of clear those accounts, I take that into my sleep because the subconscious becomes so much more open when we sleep. When we're awake, we got the conscious mind to say, "Oh, that's not good," but when we're asleep, that's all not there. So it's in a way that whatever we take into sleep is working, and when we come out of sleep, and this is why Baba's really keen on getting the hour before we go to sleep right and when we first wake up right in terms of our consciousness, because it can have a big effect. So, just this last slide really is that, this is what happens when we go to sleep. And I remember when Daddy Janki was tested, even though she was awake, she was the delta level. It's amazing, isn't it? So if you are having that really powerful yoga and you're consistent in that yoga, I guess that's what Baba would call the fire of yoga, you are going to be hitting those delta waves. And we know that when you're having good yoga, it we probably go to sleep happily and we wake up happily. So I thought this diagram is quite interesting too. And of course, if you are having really powerful yoga a lot, you probably will need less sleep. But if you're not, it is all going to get affected. And we no 2 days are the same. Some days we get our yoga right, and sometimes not so right. So I think that's enough to share to give a kind of sense of. Hope that's all right. I'll stop sharing now.
Yeah.
It's saying create a breakout room, so I'm going to close that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great, Margaret. So, yeah, as you said, uh, BKs could use less sleep, but only if they are practicing what exactly? Just high consciousness, pure thoughts, positive thoughts. And I know you've done some, well, you do your chart every night, don't you? So why don't you talk about that and preparing for the next day? And perhaps there's some rituals to it as well.
Yeah. I think that there's this phrase getting ready for bed, and it's become brushing your teeth and, night clothes kind of thing. That's what it's become in the world. But actually, in historic times, they really wanted to prepare because they wanted to have these lucid dreams. So they wanted to have good sleep. So, but Baba says also we have to prepare for sleep. And I think that, again, that something that's really going to help you sleep well is if your conscience is clear. They say the best pillow is a clear conscience. So if your conscience is clear, if you've, I think, had a well-lived day, you've done something that you feel good about, and of course, just being involved in Baba's world, you can feel really good about that, and and a happy heart. So these, to me, are the three main things that we want to take into sleep. We'll take questions later, I think. So yes, so I think this is why Baba puts writing the chart as a really important. In fact, Baba has said in some Murlis, if you don't write your chart, you won't progress. I mean, it was kind of quite woo. So I've done all different things, but the charts that I find work the best is when it's absolutely personalized to yourself. So you've got a few points that you're working on. And let's say there's 6 points, and two of them may be about soul, consciousness, or something like that, and maybe two about your relationship with Baba, and maybe two about your relationship with drama or a habit that you want to change, or something like that. And I wouldn't really do much more than that because that's enough to work on. Because if you've got something to work on, then you can start using the Murli to see what Baba says about that, you know, and the chart needs to be interesting for you, and explorative. So, you know, I don't do percentages. I just kind of I usually write a little kind of note to Baba about an overview of the day, and then I just have some pointers that I check, and and then I start to see patterns, you know. But I also, also observing, you know, what you're feeling before you go to bed. These kind of things are really important for us.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, I don't actually write it, but I'm definitely having a chat with Baba. And
Mm,
I have my chair here and Baba's picture there, and then I jump into bed. But yeah, I totally agree with this thing of clearing the day. And what have I learned today? And in that learning, yeah, what will I do differently tomorrow? And if I feel I have hurt someone, then really just to send them light in through my thoughts, because maybe I've not had a chance to communicate with them, but at least, as I said, just clear it in your mind so that, right, you go to bed,
mm,
you said,
mm,
with a clear conscience, a clear heart, and going around each room. And he's checking the quality of sleep of the children. And so some are really like sleeping and in an angelic way, and they've got this smile on their face, and others are kind of, all over the bed.
yes, yes,
So
yeah.
then Baba says, and I've heard this also from the dadis as well, that Baba used to do that.
Mm,
And also Margaret Baba used to go around with this kind of oud, this burning whatever herbs. He used to actually make the herbs. It's not your ones that you buy. And he'd take it and he'd say we were clearing the energy of the room. It's not just for mosquitoes. That was part of the reason to clear the mosquitoes, but the other is just to, change the energy of the room so that children
mm,
sleep better.
mm, mm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, you explained it.
Okay.
It's
So
almost like,
yeah.
whatever is in our consciousness, um, it's going to show, isn't it? It's going to show up in our sleep.
Yeah.
Um, but I was thinking about the sort of things that affect sleep. I mean, there's the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual, really. But even just some physical things, you know, and that's why it's quite fascinating because every day you can explore yourself. And I know for myself, if I eat late at night, it has a big effect on how I feel when I wake up. And I think mainly it's because when you sleep, actually the brain needs to not be doing all the functions that need to, because when you sleep, that's the only time that the brain gets to clear out, like the proteins and everything that it doesn't need anymore. So this can't happen during the day. So if we eat late at night and the brain's still trying to send signals for digestion, it's like a confusion going on. Whereas if you eat a little bit earlier, and you've had time to, all the digestion's already happened, then the brain can do the function that it needs to when it sleeps. I mean, a lot happens when you sleep, um, like a whole, as I said, a whole rejuvenation process is going on. And I think sometimes when you wake up and you've got red eye or something like it's kind of showing that the process hasn't kind of completed, if you like. Um, but I also wanted to mention that I wanted to take a kind of compassionate look at this because, in the BK world, people are dealing with many, many things, physically, emotionally, mentally. Some BKs are on medications that, make them more sleepy and things like that. So I think as we look around the class, and we all know that whatever you see, you could be the next person, right? To be compassionate because you don't know what's going on in someone's life that is causing them to be a bit sleepy in class. And I've been, I've watched in the auditorium where someone's poking someone, waking them up, and I just feel, oh, because I could be next and be poked. And I think it's if we are going to dress it, to do it very gently, maybe
Yeah, so I
ask,
think, yeah, but I think we have to see why are they sleeping in class? It's because
yeah,
they're not getting enough sleep otherwise, which is why they're having to make up for it.
or it could be quality of. You see, it could be that they're getting sleep, but the quality of it's not good because of many different reasons. So I just wanted to first mention, that to have a more compassionate look because you don't know what's going on in someone's life. Like, for example, me, I'm at my Lockett family home at the moment. I have been here since November. It's challenging. It's not like being in a BK environment and it's all pure. It's not, and my Lockett father left a couple of weeks ago. I don't feel sad or anything, but I don't know what's happening on my subconscious level.
Left his body.
We're, yeah, left his body, yeah. And we're at the moment, the house has to go on the market. We're clearing the house. I lived here from the age of 5 till 20. I'm just giving an example, right? So lots of things could be happening subconsciously that I'm not so consciously aware of. And I'm sure it all has an effect. So I'm just saying, we don't ever know what's going on in someone else's life that might be
Well,
affecting, but we can focus on ourselves and get ourselves right. But I notice if one person falls asleep, then usually the whole row starts to fall asleep. So one thing that I've learned is if you notice you're in a gathering, you fall asleep, don't think it's going to get better. Get up, go out, get a drink of water, freshen yourself up, come back, stand up at the back because you're less likely to fall asleep. But we think, oh, we're nodding off and it's going to get improved. My experience is it doesn't. And actually other people around you get affected. So, if you are a bit sleepy, take responsibility and shift, make a shift. But generally like a compassionate view.
yeah, so this is what we were talking about this morning at
Mm,
GRC, that not all disabilities are obvious or visible.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
and so that too. And so maybe you want to talk about some of these names like narcolepsy,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
sleep apnea.
yeah.
Yeah.
So some BKs I know have sleep apnea, which means that in their sleep, they kind of miss breaths. They miss breaths and then they wake up. They wake up. And so
Which
they have
means then it's not quality of sleep.
it's
That's
not quality of sleep. And I know, I won't mention names, but I know a few people who have sleep apnea. I think many BKs probably might have narcolepsy and they don't know. And the narcolepsy means that you can be awake and suddenly asleep. There's not a kind of transition. And I have it slightly. And the reason that I found out about it is I was actually driving back from GRC. This is many years ago. It must be 20, 25 years ago. I fell asleep at the wheel. But luckily, there was no one on the road. And of course, I woke up. I pulled over as soon as I could. I think I went into a village and I just slept. But then I was, it kind of got me curious of why that happened. And I actually went to sleep clinic and they said I had kind of mild narcolepsy. So I have to manage it. So like if I've got to go long distance, I'll probably go by train rather than drive, or the worst case for me is in the afternoons, late afternoon. So I have to manage it. And I think but there's probably some who've got it that they're not aware that they've got it. And so as soon as they
It's
sit
hard
down for
to label it. Yeah, it's hard to
yeah,
label it. We just think it's just
I'm not a good
something in the
Brahmin,
moment. Yeah, or that. Yeah, yeah.
I'm not a good Brahmin. But as soon as they sit down, they fall asleep. And I think, one, it could be that they're not getting enough sleep. They're not getting even maybe 6 hours sleep. Or um, or the quality of their sleep for whatever reason. But I think what we can do is we can try experimenting with things like I know different things like not only how you eat, what you eat, when you eat, the diet you have, all of them have an effect. And I remember going to this class once. It wasn't a BK class, it was someone who was talking about raw food, which I don't eat all raw food, but they said something that was very, very profound. They said, after it's passed your tongue, what part of your body likes it? And I thought that's a very good principle to live by, because sometimes we're just ruled by our tongue, but the rest of the body is in resistance to it. So just as Baba says, become a self-sovereign, basically he's saying become a self-sovereign during the day. You also have to become a self-sovereign of your sleep, like a master of your sleep, you know. And there's
So
only
just to
mm,
stay with the food, yeah. So
mm,
I've also been since 13th of November, I've also been with a couple of exceptions, but not eating at night. And I can really see the difference in how you feel. Basically, it's how you feel at the end and how less is more. Because we think, we need all the nutrition and protein, but as you eat less, you have more energy.
mm, because it takes a lot of energy to digest.
Yeah.
And so it's better to have the bigger meals earlier on in the day and then less. And I think many are trying these kind of intermittent fasting, which is like you get a long time, which just gives your body a chance to rejuvenate itself. And of course, a lot of that's going to be when you sleep as well. So a good portion of that is when you sleep. So yeah, I think it's just experimenting, isn't it? It's just like thinking, okay. And your body tells you if you've eaten something and it doesn't agree with it. It gives you all the signals, but it's whether you want to read the signals, or you want to make the changes.
I mean, you
Uh,
literally feel light, both body
mm,
and soul. I mean, you just feel light here. So
mm,
that's what was it called? The gut is the second brain.
yeah, and the gut is where the serotonin is produced as well. So if the gut's all a mess, to me, what
Yeah.
kind of serotonin has been produced, which then affects the melatonin. So you see, it's a whole cycle. So we all know if we start eating a more healthy diet, we feel good. But it's also because the production of the serotonin is better, which then produces the melatonin. So we start sleeping better. And the beautiful thing about this, if you just start making a little bit of effort, which, Baba says effort then reward, things can show up better quite quickly, you know? So it's not that you have to do years of this. I think it's just like, even if you start having like at night more like a salad type thing and a bit earlier, or and you eat your bigger meals earlier on, you might just see amazing difference within a couple of days on your sleep and then sleep, the sleep wake cycle.
Just a little
Uh,
tweak, isn't it? Yeah.
Little treat. It's also the same with if the body's dehydrated or if the body's hydrated, this is going to have an effect. But of course, if you drink late at night, sorry, this keeps going. If you drink late at night, then you're probably going to get disturbed sleep. And of course, as we get older, it automatically happens a bit more. But so I get up and I start drinking. As soon as I get up, I drink, I drink quite a lot. So even by mid-morning, I've had most of my fluid, and then I kind of start tapering off and less and less. But of course, we forget and we're suddenly in a situation and we have a drink later and it has an effect.
Mm.
So you have to keep learning, you have to keep remembering, oh yeah, I knew that one.
Yeah. So also just going back to the feeling light. So when you do pass a bowel movement, you feel much lighter because again, there's that connection between the gut and the brain. And if you don't have a bowel movement, then you're feeling groggy and heavy and you have a headache. So again, so important for that to happen as well.
Yeah. And there's things that, very natural things that help in that process. Just some foods just help with that. So, it's just doing a bit of research, isn't it? There's so much available. But it's kind of eating and drinking, like the soul is in the body. And actually the soul doesn't need food and drink, but the body does to work. And so it's really the soul making the decision, what is really going to make this body work the best? But we've got into habits and cultural things, and we become a slave to it. So, part of mastery is to work out for yourself, like a self-master, of what the soul and the body, how do they work best together? And that is part of the whole package. You can't, and if you're putting things in the body that don't really work or don't agree just because of the tongue, it's not mastery. It's still kind of slavery, you see.
Mm.
So, but we have to keep learning because what might work at one point might not work another time. So it's kind of like this sleep-wake cycle it's a kind of game in itself, isn't it? It's a kind of self-discovery, if you like.
Mm.
Yeah.
So the other important thing I think is really to have a very clear room, or at least a room that is
Mm.
not full of clutter. And if
Yes.
you need to charge your phones, you do that outside. You don't have anything on or working,
Yes. Yes.
because all that really affects your sleeping
Yes.
pattern, right? Or the
Can I
rhythms.
tell you a little story about this? Because when I was doing professionally, this course professionally, I remember there was one time and someone said that they really didn't, they were having really terrible sleep. And And so we did this exercise, part of the course anyway, was to do an exercise, and there were certain things you allowed in your room. Obviously, you allowed a bed and bedding and a closet with some clothes in, but not too many because then that's a problem, right? And there's a few things that you allowed, and then they had to write down everything else that was in the room, even the cupboards. And so they had a kind of list, and some were very embarrassed about it, to be honest. And but I didn't ask them. I just said, "This is for yourself." But one person said, "I've got a lot of IT equipment in my room," because he was an IT professional, and even someone had passed on, and he got his IT stuff as well. So I just said to him, um, "Why don't you just try for a week or 2 weeks, um, taking all of the equipment, IT equipment, out of the room?" And at night you shut it all down, and even the charging you do it somewhere else. Like I never charged the phone in my room, I put it outside. And he wrote back to me after 2 weeks. He said, "I can't believe the difference." So I'm going to show you what I have this little clock here. Can you see it? This is like a little fantastic clock. And this bit when you press at the top, it's set for 3:30 in the morning. And when I press it, it automatically is set for 3:30 the next day. So if I wake up before that, fine. But it's always there. And it's just battery operated and it's silent. So the we don't really need to have our phones. I think this is a big screens. We know that the blue light of screens, but to have your phone right by your head, and even though you think you're not hearing it, those messages are coming in because we're international now. We can't escape it, right? They're coming in and it's having an effect. You don't know what it's affecting your subconscious. So my big thing is get it out of the room.
It's the EMFs as well. Yeah.
Mm,
Electromagnetic frequency.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, be free, who really needs you in the middle of the night?
Yeah, I think in that case, your sleep is more important. Or it's good that you get a good night's sleep than to try and attend to somebody else.
Yeah.
Um, so just a couple of other points about sleep and waking up. Sister Jayanti had actually um, given us permission to drink coffee. So in other words, when we wake up, we should really wake up and not just kind of tick the box that I've gotten up. So drink what you need to drink, get yourself fresh, have a little walk around, read something before you go and have Amrit Vela. Because otherwise we just get up and we rush, because we want to get there, say hello to Baba, good morning, Baba, but then in the next moment, we've fallen asleep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you do need to do quite a bit when you first wake up and maybe some stretching. You could do it in Baba's remembrance. It's just the soul moving a body, isn't it? As long as you stay soul conscious. So yeah, whatever you need to do to be more alert. So yeah, maybe some stretching, wash your face. First thing I do, wash face, brush teeth. That's like and yeah, some stretching, and then maybe even read something. Read something that's could be a bit of the Murli or something that you wrote from yesterday, or um, read some of the blessings you've had. Something that is going to get your consciousness going. It's like the process going, so that or something that you've already prepared. I think today I'm going to take Baba as my mother. Baba, I want to really experience you as my dear mother. You're going into Amrit Vela with something. And also the first 10 minutes when you wake up, it's like that's your prime time. So you don't want to be waking up thinking, oh no, I want more sleep. You want to be, in a way, pumping yourself with spirituality in those first 10 minutes.
Intoxication. Yeah.
Yeah, and building yourself. The other morning I did it. I hadn't done it for a while, and I've got this book and I write out the blessings in it, my blessings that I've received. It just writing about 3 or 4 blessings, it just wow, you're up there because these are blessings that have been given to you, okay, through an instrument soul, but they're from Baba through them. And it just my whole Amrit Veda was just amazing. So there's lots we can do. And as the weather gets warming, maybe even step outside if you can and get some fresh air or open a window and get some fresh air. So I totally agree with you. You need to be awake.
Mm.
Not, because we can be awake but not awake, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah, definitely. The other thing we didn't talk about also is the nap in the afternoon. So if you're taking a long nap, then of course you're not going to be going to bed early because you're wide awake. So I think Margaret and I both recommend that just take a short nap so that you can go to bed early and fall asleep. Because if you've
Mm,
had your quota of sleep and then you try to sleep, you're going to be awake and it,
mm.
it defeats the purpose.
I mean, some BKs, I really take my hat to them that they're out there in the world. I used to many years ago, but they're working all day, no chance for nap. But I know a lot of them go to bed early, and that's how they cope, and I really admire that. Um, so I think 20 minutes, half an hour max. Sometimes I lay down 10 minutes. It
But
helps.
isn't that then half the cycle?
20 minutes, because that's, I think, a bit different than the sleep cycle. But it's just that it's just like
A
it
light
tw
sleep.
yeah, just light, and it's like you drift off and you come back, you know. But even when you're doing your nap, still you need to got to check your consciousness. I mean, the other thing that I think is really important for us as BKs is when we actually physically actually sleep, get into bed, is to go into this detachment. So Baba, the system Baba really wants us to do is to have some meditation, obviously 7 to 7:30, but he also is encouraging us to write our chart and then have some meditation before we kind of lay down. But then it's almost like this feeling that we're laying the body down in the bed, it's done its work. Yeah, the rejuvenation process is still going to go on while we sleep, but it's done its main activity to be very appreciative and grateful to the body for allowing you to do, as you said, Baba's service and earn your fortune. But then it's almost like we've got to bring our energy up here and, in a way, detach. And if you can even imagine yourself going to the subtle region, the soul world, that has a big effect on sleep.
So that was one
Because
of the questions, like, why are you lying flat? Like, why are you sleeping on your back?
I trained myself, because I think if I didn't used to, I used to kind of curl up like a little ball, but
Is
I,
that like the corpse stage? Is that like the corpse pose? Is
well,
that
yeah, I guess it is. I just trained myself many years ago, because then I thought you can sleep anywhere, you know. You can even in Madaban on the hard bed, you can sleep because you're on your back, you know. But if you're on your side, it's like digs in.
yeah.
Um, so I just did it, and I don't really feel comfortable when I turn over now. And also, it's much better for neck and things like that. But, each one has to work it out for themselves,
Mm,
you know. But it's more about your um, being slightly detached from the body, or
mm,
majorly detached from the body before you go to sleep. I think that's probably has the biggest impact.
mm. So,
And
Margaret, just to say to everyone, so we did realize when we had a chat yesterday, because we also chatted 1 hour, and then we realized that it's going to need more time. So I hope you're okay if we go over another 15 minutes, because there is a couple more things, and then we can take a few of your questions. So we'll aim to finish UK time 5:15, if that's okay. So yeah,
okay.
so Margaret, again, they say there's three conditions for sleeping. One is that it should be dark so that the
Yeah.
melatonin kicks in, and that it should be absolutely quiet, silent. So which is why, both of us remove the batteries in the clocks when we, go to Motherban. So really, it should be absolutely quiet. So put earplugs in if you have to, and fresh air, some level of, oxygen coming in, even if it's a little crack. So you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, and
Dark,
I think,
quiet,
yeah.
and fresh.
Mm.
Yeah.
So in especially if we live in a city, it's not always that dark, but we can get those blackout blinds. And why that's important, I mean, I try and make it as dark as I can, and
Or
I have
even
put,
the eye patches.
oh
Can you?
yeah, yeah, some people use those, but the pineal gland, which is produces the serotonin and then the melatonin, works better when it's dark. And so I don't know, I'm sometimes people have night lights on and things like this. Um, if you can have the room as dark as you can, it's going to really help that production of that
Yeah.
hormone. Mm.
So even here at GRC, we used to have the outside lamp or light flash onto the house. And our dear brother, cooperated, and he's kind of tilted it a bit. Otherwise,
Mm.
even through the blind, the crack in the blind, I was getting light. So
Mm.
even that was it kind of you see when you close your eyes, you're still seeing a bit of that light.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. And of course now, especially in the cities, people put up sensor lights and things like that, and it just takes a little fox to walk past and
Yeah.
but yeah, you just manage what you can. But the pineal gland, which is quite important, happens better when it's the darker it is.
Yeah. And then the other point to raise, which Pavitra, I think, has already raised, is this thing where, at least in Kuwait, the sirens are going off. And here too, sometimes we have the fire alarm going off. And we have had ourselves tested after that, and the system has had a shock, right? So you're in the middle of deep sleep, 2 a.m., 1 a.m., and suddenly the alarm goes off, and it has to be a high decibel sound so that you wake up. And so it's a kind of threat to your system. You wake up suddenly and you have to kind of just get out of the house. So even for that, you have to, well, what I've learned is you have to then calm down the nervous system because you're getting ready for threat and danger, which is actually what's happening to those in the Middle East at the moment. There's just
Mm.
sirens and bombs going off. So I think you have to take a moment to just take deep breaths and just, be loving kindness to the self.
Mm. Because what happens is the cortisol, it's the fight and flight, the cortisol starts
Hmm.
working, and then that's the opposite of, and of course, in those situations, you just have to manage the best you can and maybe put Baba's light around you and, kind of see if you can calm yourself down, isn't it, in remembrance?
Hmm.
But in a way, to a less extent, it's the same when our alarm goes off in the middle of a deep sleep, and that's why it's worth working out for yourself what your cycle is and how much you need, because the same thing on a not the same scale, but the same thing is happening. You're going to feel groggy. You're not going to feel good about yourself because your alarm's going off when you're in the deep sleep, whereas you want your alarm really to go off at the end of a REM sleep.
Hmm. But then you time yourself. That's the point. Like you have to calculate that
Yeah,
let me work backwards. I want to wake up 3:30, so you work back 6 hours, say. So by
yeah,
9:30 you should be in bed. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And
Okay.
also, it takes a little bit to, it's not that you just fall asleep, isn't it? Sometimes it
Exactly.
takes a bit. So you've got to think,
Yeah.
um, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a few of your questions. Here's Carla. She's saying I work shifts rotating every
Mm,
week, morning,
mm,
evening, and nights, and I have a toddler, 3 years old, still waking me up. So I
mm.
find it hard to do Amrit Vela and have time to sleep. Any suggestions on that?
One, I think that is like a really challenging situation, isn't it? You've got both two things, because I think that's the hardest thing is you've got a baby that you have to attend to, like a duty. It's a duty, you have to do it. And also your work is your duty. So I think you just be very kind to yourself and, do what you can. Just do the meditation when you can and
Yeah,
and not feel guilty and shame about it, because that's again gonna make it worse, isn't it? So, I mean, when I was before my father passed away, my duty was at 20 to 4, because once someone's bedbound, you have to kind of shift them a bit so they don't get the bed sores, because once they get bed sores, it's quite difficult for them and for you. So, and it was so interesting and I remember Daddy Janky saying it, when you have a duty, um, it really helps you. And it's so true. I mean, I was almost always waking up way before my alarm because I knew that once I went into the room, I didn't know if my Amrit Vela was going to be taken, doing something. Okay, if he was asleep, I just moved the pillow and came back out. But sometimes he was like, "Hello, I've been waiting for you," and it was like, "Oh, here we go, Bob. I think I've gonna miss this Amrit Vela. I'm aware it's Amrit Vela, but I might not be able to sit."
yeah.
So I found that I was waking up early because that was the chance I was getting naturally.
Mm,
And there's something about having a duty that kind of helps you. But I was realizing after that we are all on duty. Our duty is to be up, remember Baba, and serve the world. We're on duty. And Amrit Vela is the prime time for that duty. But obviously, if you've got situations, you just do your best. You just maybe can't do Amrit Vela. You do it when you can. but the main thing is don't feel guilty or shame about it, you
Yeah,
know.
don't feel guilty or shame, but if we know that Amrit Vela is the prime time to take power from Baba, then it's almost like we have to work around that.
Yeah.
Not just hope that I'll wake up and give other things priority. So if the focus is I want to take power and that's the time, then I have to do what I need to do to get to bed, to wake up early, to be alone, kind of work that way.
I
Yeah.
remember I was in the hospital looking after my nephew. This is going back a few years, and his sleep was all over the place. And some nights I had to stay there because it was the time of COVID and the whole care industry was on its knees, and so was the nursing industry and everything. So sometimes I stayed there, and I actually got him round to that he would go to sleep by 9 o'clock. And so I got everyone sort of, okay, we have to start the medicines early because we have to fit it in so that he's asleep. Because they were coming in at 10:30 giving him medicine. I thought, I can't cope with this.
Mm,
So, if it's exactly what you're saying, if you're determined to do your Amrit Vela, and he would always sleep through my Amrit Vela, eventually, not immediately.
mm,
And yeah, so again, it's right, give it priority. But when you've got a young child and working, you just have to do what you can do.
mm. Okay, what is your what is it? Yeah, what would you recommend to cope with sleep apnea?
It's a medical condition. Go talk to the sleep specialists or doctors and things because it is a medical condition, as is, less restless leg syndrome and narcolepsy. They are medical conditions, and there may be things that they can help you with.
Mm,
And sometimes some people have to have machines, oxygen machines and things like that to help. So that I would go get medical help.
mm. Even actually clenching of the jaw, and you're kind of rubbing your teeth together at
Yeah,
night.
grinding your
Grinding,
teeth.
yeah, grinding your teeth, and for that you get the night guard as well, so that
Yes.
helps.
Yeah. Yeah. And that might be people might have that because they're going through a time of stress. It might not be forever,
Mm,
but just taking that, you know.
right. Yeah. So Anna is saying I hear the Murli at night before going to sleep. Next morning's Murli. That's great. Maria saying most people snore when they sleep on their back, but what to do? You want to get,
I
yeah,
I haven't been told that I do, but who knows?
yeah. Mona saying earplugs help when sirens are on. And
Mm,
Shelby is saying some people have low magnesium. Some people have low magnesium levels, so it may be worth considering magnesium L, the threonate, which can help with sleep.
yes. I mean, I think that the whole diet vitamin things is that's again you have to do your own research because everyone is different, aren't
Mm,
they? And some people, you know, yeah, you just have to work it out what works
mm,
for you.
mm. Okay, so I think, yeah, is there anything else you'd like to say? I think we've covered quite a bit. I
Let's
don't
just
know
see
if
if
there's
there's
anything left.
just a bit
I,
more about clearing the clutter
Mhm,
because I've noticed that when I have cleared out the clutter from room, because um, sometimes it's more like papers and things that you kind of accumulate, and everything in your room is pulling the energy in some way. So, and I remember that Daddy Janky used to go around and open cupboards and have a look,
mm,
because we think it's in the cupboard, the door's closed, it doesn't have an effect. It's not true. It's
mm,
energetic. Everything in life is energetic. So, the more that the cupboards are tidy, they're not packed and things. I think, and I always notice every time I've kind of cleared out clutter and taken it to the tip, I always sleep better that night. So again, it's a bit like the food, less is more.
mm,
And sometimes when you do clear out the clutter, you discover things that you've forgotten you've had. So it ends up being more, But I think Baba is saying, of course, the message from Daddy, wasn't it? Live simply. And I think even now, when I go back to London, I'm already thinking I'm going to clear out a lot. Because you see it when someone leaves the body, you can't take anything with you, not even one little iota of a speck. So why are we accumulating all this stuff? So I think,
While it's affecting us, it's
yeah,
there, but
absolutely.
it's also affecting us. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's good to kind of live very simply. And I remember Daddy Janky, if you go into her bedroom, hardly anything there, maybe her glasses and glasses case, and don't think there was even a clock, but, and the Murli. And I think Daddy Kamaka the same. These elevated souls, they didn't keep possessions around them. So they're trying to give us a message. Um,
Well, look at Baba's room. I mean, I think it was as simple as that.
yeah,
No
yeah,
frames either. It just had this tiny little stove where
yeah,
they'd
yeah.
heat his water. Yeah.
And also the other thing, just to share, but I don't know, someone told me this, I don't know if we can verify it, but I was told that Mama went to her room at 8 o'clock in the evening. I mean, I guess maybe there was some big event she had to stay, but she generally went at 8 o'clock. And of course, you know that she would have done quite a lot of meditation before she went to sleep. And this is why she could get up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes
So yeah,
sense.
if you want to wake up early, then yeah, don't burn the candles at both ends.
Yeah, yeah,
Go
yeah,
to bed early.
yeah.
Yeah. And if some have that privilege, that's great, right?
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes you can't because of whatever reason, you know.
Mm.
And I think we can all survive for a little bit with less sleep, but long term, you want to get some kind of ritual. Oh, yeah, the last thing, just to talk about the last hour before you go to sleep. What are you doing? Because the last hour needs to be downtime. And I think be really careful about the mobile phone and the social media and catching up with the emails and all this thing. Try and do it earlier in the day, and discipline discipline the self not to be doing it late at night or at night. Give yourself that time to kind of relax and you know I mean, before I became a BK, I thought having lavender baths was excellent, but of course most of us don't have that luxury anymore. But you know even little things like putting a bit of lavender, burning lavender. I mean, I put a bit of lavender oil in my night cream and just put it on. It's like these things, they do help.
I I just
Chamomile, lavender,
I just put
ylang
it
ylang.
on the pillow, even
Yeah,
that. Good.
yeah. But they do help, and maybe light a candle. It just kind of it's
Mm.
like we have to give ourselves messages. When I was looking after children many, many years ago, I would start singing the same song about an hour before the children went to sleep. And so they kind of got to know, oh, it's time to sleep. So then we'd sing the song, maybe read a book. But I think even as adults, we need a bit of rituals. And it might be that you go to Baba's room or you sit somewhere and remember Baba, you write your chart. You need some kind of ritual, I think, that kind of gives you the clue. It's time to end the day.
Winding down. Yeah.
Winding down.
Yeah. Okay. So hope, even if one little thing has helped
Mm.
you to kind of improve your way of living, sleeping, being, then I guess this has been worth it.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes it's just a little tweak. I'm sure many of us know many of these things, but then it's the actual doing of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just try one thing, because only if you try one thing at a time do you really see if it works. So yeah, just try one thing. Might be
Mm,
just eating less in the evening,
mm,
and that might make such a big difference.
mm. So yeah, thank you everyone. And
Thank
thank you,
you.
Margaret,
Thank
for
you, Aruna, for
joining us.
inviting.
So let's have a nice meditation and oh, nice hearts. So yeah, let's have a nice meditation. And I hope tonight when you go to sleep, it's going to be different, more empowered.
this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. When I lose myself, when it seems I've lost my way,